Welcome to A Bevy of Bloods, a fan podcast of the Sydney Swans Football Club. My name's Noddy, joined as always by Stevo, and in this episode number 15, we're going to talk about the game just played against the Hawks, a quick VFL update, a few general topics in the AFL, and finish off with all our tips for the rest of the round. So to all you Cygnets and Swanlings out there, fluff up your tail feathers and settle in for a potentially biased yarn about all things to do with our beloved Bloods. On a chilly winter's night last Friday, the 11th of June, in front of almost 26,000 people at the Sydney Cricket Ground, the 6th place Sydney Swans were defeated by the 17th place Hawthorn Hawks by 38 points, with a final score of 7-9-51 to 14-5-89. Okay, Stevo, first impressions, what did you think of that?
Okay, was it cold there, was it? I didn't notice it. I was watching on the telly. Was it cold in Sydney?
Yeah, it was a cold snap. I think the Thursday was the coldest day of the year to that point, and so Friday was still quite chilly. Although there wasn't much wind, so it wasn't too bad.
Ouch, sounds nice. Maybe that's why Hawthorn were better, because it was bloody Melbourne weather. Maybe that helped them. Didn't help us.
Tasmanian weather or something.
Tasmanian weather. Maybe that's why they want to move there. And certainly didn't help us. Yeah, look, it was terrible, wasn't it? It was really, really poor. And a massive lost opportunity. I mean, this was a chance to really shore up our position in the top 8, to go into the bye with 9 wins under our belt and only 4 losses, like really, really strong into the bye. And instead, honestly, the Swans, I thought they were worse than they were against Gold Coast. And I thought we were pretty pathetic against Gold Coast, honestly. We got beaten really badly at the contest, and Hawthorn, they turned up to play and they played really, really well. And, credit to them. They outplayed us. They out-pressured us. They did all the things that they needed to do to break our game style down, and had a good job. And the worst thing is now we got the bye, so we've got 2 full weeks to stew on it and think about what could have been before we get a chance to fix it up next time. So, yeah, massive letdown that game.
Yeah, same, mate. It was a shocker. Look, we were just completely off the boil. Other than a few moments throughout, it felt like we didn't even want to be out there. I mean, they look good and we look bad. And in fact, I'll quote my local barista, Alfie. So a bit of a shout out to Alfie here. It was his first ever Swans game. It was on his bucket list. And I got a coffee during the week, and I said, "What did you think of the game?" And he said, "Well, it looked like every time we caught the ball was covered in oil. But when they caught it, the ball was covered in Velcro." And I was like, "Alfie, that's an excellent observation, mate. Thank you for coming to support us. And I'm extremely sorry we served up that nonsense to you for your first game." But I just thought that was a pretty good observation, because they looked good and we were bad, and their goodness made our bad look even worse. I don't know if any of that made sense, but they were my first impressions, mate. What were your key takeaways, Stevo?
We talked about this before, that there's no easy games. I think we said it even in the preview before the Hawthorn game last week. There's no easy games in the AFL. And this proved that this is a team that's been in the bottom 2 for the whole year. They've barely cracked a win against even some of the real battling teams, and they brought their best footy, and they played absolutely their best footy, and it was too good for our not best footy, which is what we turned up with. It was kind of the Gold Coast game all over again, and I guess all I'm really holding on to after this is that, it's one terrible loss. It's our second really terrible loss of the year. The other games we've lost have been disappointing, but I haven't walked away from them feeling that we were terrible like this one or the Gold Coast one. But, we came back after the Gold Coast one and had a bit of a good spell and got some wins back on the board. And, we can do it again. We can go into the bye, fix up some stuff, take a rest, and come back for a decent crack in the final, nine games of the year. And I guess the other thing is, I wish if we were going to play badly, we'd do it against the good teams. Like, why can't we play awful against the Bulldogs or, I don't know, Melbourne? Like, these teams who are probably going to beat us anyway, and then against the bottom teams, we still play all right. So instead, we seem to be producing our worst footy against the worst teams and our best footy against the best teams. And if you look at our numbers against the top 8, like the teams who are currently in the top 8, we've won 3 and lost 1 against the top 8 teams. And against the bottom 10, we're 5 wins, 4 losses, which pretty much says it, doesn't it? And our recent form isn't even great either. We won 4 in a row to start the year, and now we've won 4 and lost 5 in our last 9. So our form line at the moment, I think, is more of a 7th to 12th team rather than a top 4 team where we could have been had we pinched this win off the Hawks.
Yeah, mate, absolutely. Look, for me, yes, they kicked well. I'll talk about that in a second. Yes, they play hard. You're going to talk about that in a second. And yes, they definitely deserve to win. So I'm just going to get those three comments out of the way first. But on behalf of the scores of scathing Swans fans, free kicks. We couldn't buy a free kick last Friday. What's going on there, mate? Sydney had 10 free kicks, Hawthorn 26. It was the biggest free kick differential for us this year. The Hawks got plus 16 free kicks. I had flashbacks of the 2016 grand final. I was having panic attacks. It wasn't pretty. All right. I went to the footy with our group, and my mate Cyrus came along. He's a mad Pies fan. I was actually in Sydney to watch Bucks' last game on the Monday there against the D's, who got a win. So good on them. But he sat with us looking, even as a neutral fan and an absolute Hawks hater. It was his opinion that, look, not too many of the free kicks that were paid against us weren't there. What he means to say is that, it sucks to be on the wrong end of the free kick count, but they were legitimately there. My point to him was, and I think to you, we were speaking earlier, is that watching the replay, it just didn't look like we were even getting the 50-50 calls. They're getting the 50-50 calls. We weren't. Over the course of the game, a 16 difference in free kicks. I don't know. I guess I represent the heart on your sleeve, one-eyed, raging Swans fans out there. We're not so logical. We're not so reasonable, and we scream our guts out at the footy. But look, anyway, from my mind, the bye has come at a good time. I know we're going to sit on this loss, and hopefully that motivates us to get our arse into gear for round 15 onwards. But yeah, I think we need a couple of weeks to recover, because I know there's a couple of players who I think are out on their feet. But look, sorry. We're here. I'll just get a quick. When Papley got marched, right? He got penalised 50 metres for giving Razor Ray a mouthful, right? So that happened, even though it was holding the ball, and that was a howler, right? I think we can all acknowledge. But then it felt like Razor went on to penalise us for the next few in a row. And look, is this an additional punishment to Papley or the Swans? I don't know. I mean, Razor, the man, the enigma that Razor Ray is. I mean, that's a whole topic we could talk about there. But yeah, look. It hurt to watch. I know you've got opinions about free kicks, Steve, but thank you for indulging me.
No. Look, I mean, free kicks is always a tough one, because there's so much emotion in footy all the time. And the way that our game is, it's often very hard to even agree. Like you and me, we can sit here and watch tape, and we do this. We sit there after games sometimes, and we both watch the same replay, and you're convinced that there is a free and I'm convinced there isn't, or vice versa. So even amongst footy people, it's often tough. Like, you listen to the commentators, they don't always agree if it's a free kick. So it is a tough game to umpire, and it's a tough game to watch as a fan when you're not getting the 50-50s. And I agree, actually, that there were some of those 50-50s, especially tackle free kicks, like ones that we could have got holding the ball for, or like incorrect disposal free kicks for, that just didn't seem to be getting paid. And it was frustrating. That Papley one is a perfect example. To me, that's holding the ball every day of the week. The commentators debated it. Most of them agreed that they thought it was a holding the ball. And then for some reason, sometimes they just don't get given. And, how do you tackle your way back into a game, especially if you're struggling to win the footy and you're trying to tackle your way back into it. And then every time you do a good tackle and the ball pops out, it's play on. It's tough, because all your energy goes into tackling, and then you got to get back up and go again. It's tough. So yeah, I guess we talk about free kicks a lot, right? after the games, and usually it's we eventually come to some sort of consensus towards the end. And I think on this one, yeah, the number is big, but I don't think that we were hard enough at the footy. And I think if we had been hard enough at the footy, we probably would have got more of those 50-50s, because we just weren't attacking the ball.
That's a logical response that is based on reason. So I do appreciate that, Steve. But good God, it was hard watching at the ground. Oh, my God. Okay, quarter by quarter breakdown. All right, let's have a look at this. So first quarter, the Hawks beat us 4-2 to our 3-2. Somehow we stayed in that. Second quarter, this was really their big quarter. Hawthorn scored 5-1 to our 2-1. Third quarter, it was a draw. It was 1 goal, 1 each. And then the final quarter was another big one, and frustrating for us. But the Hawks scored 4-1, and we scored 1 goal, 5, to lose by 38, almost the same margin as that Suns loss, which was 40 in the end. All right, Stevo, stats. Throw me some numbers, mate.
Oh, the big one for me was contested possessions. We got smashed on contested possessions, minus 26, which is a belting. And for me, contested possessions, it's like it kind of shows our lack of effort around the footy and around the contest that that we just weren't getting to the ball and winning it when there was hard balls to win and when there was physical contest. And if you look at, there was a couple of quarters in particular we got smacked in the first quarter. We lost the contested possessions by 14, and then again in the last quarter by 10, and that was when most of the damage really in contested possessions was done. But even in those middle two quarters where it was a bit more even, we still were getting beaten at the footy a lot of the time and not playing well. Third quarter, I actually thought we didn't play too terribly, and if we'd not blown a few chances, we could even have scraped our way back into the game. But their intent around the footy was massive. I mean, the only time this year that we've lost contested possessions by anywhere close to that before this week was against the Cats, which funnily enough we won, and we lost it by 34 against Fremantle. We lost it by 15. We lost it by 9 against Gold Coast. In any other game this year, the biggest gap in contested possessions one way or the other has been 7. So to lose it by 26 is an absolute flogging around the ball. That was my biggest stat for this week.
Yeah, fair call. You could see it. I mean, it was very evident, but it's a funny thing because I was trying to, make a connection between contested possessions and free kicks, and then I just couldn't pull out a clear, stat. So anyway, I chose to focus on our accuracy because, look, even though we had like a decent number of inside 50s, so it was Sydney had 50 to Hawthorn's 59. Obviously, they still beat us by 9, and maybe you go through and you have a look at those the difference of the inside 50s could lead to goals, but it just didn't. We didn't look like scoring. We just didn't look dangerous. It was our lowest score of the year. Okay, so it was our worst performance on the scoreboard. Our next lowest was a total of 58 to Melbourne, which looked. I mean, that was a game I felt like we could have won. We also had +6 in the contested possessions and +2 in the free kicks against Melbourne. So again, it's very difficult to try and draw a trend out of these stats, but it just goes back to your point about effort. I just think we were beaten. But look, we converted at 43.8%. So that was our equal second worst this year. Funnily enough, again, the loss against Melbourne, we were 44%. And the win against Essendon was our worst of the year, 39%. So again, it's hard to know, looking at numbers alone if you're going to win or lose. But the other thing is that I talk about every week is how many of those inside 50s, what percentage of those inside 50s turned into goals, and that was 14%, and that was our lowest of the year. Okay, so even though we had 50 inside 50s, fairly close to the Hawks 59, we just didn't convert. Right. Conversely, it was the Hawks' third highest score of the year, but by far their most accurate in terms of conversion this year, 73.7%. So 74%. Right. So that was a clear 10 to 15% better than I think their next best. They looked dangerous. They had way more intent. They just were more capable, and it showed. So that was I was looking more at conversion and accuracy this week. So just a quick apology. Last episode, I commented saying the last time there was a game decided by single digits between the Swans, Horse was still assistant coach. I think I said round 1 of 2012, and that should have been round 1 of 2010 when St Kilda beat Sydney by 8 points at ANZ. All right, Stevo, moving on. What were your favourite moments of the game, mate?
When it was over, it was terrible. But for the sake of the segment, I will comment on a couple of our goals. Our first goal, Franklin, in the first quarter, he takes a really good mark just on the 50, just outside the 50, and he plays on, goes around the mark. I'm not sure whether he was actually originally planning to hook around and have a shot himself, but there was a bunch of Hawks players there in his space, which was where they should have been because they know he's going to do that. And he ducks and weaves through, I think, 3 of them and comes back inside. Little dinky pass to Will Hayward, who kicked a nice set shot goal for our first one. And I think we missed Hayward too. After he got hit and went off with the sub, we definitely missed having Hayward's impact around the ground and up forward. And then I guess the other one was Heaney's first goal too. I mean, and Heaney had an absolute terrible game. He didn't get near it most of the game. They had him floating around the back line at times to try and get a touch, but in his first goal in the first quarter, the ball comes into a contest, there's this perfect crumb, and Heaney gets it and runs around and snaps it. And the thing I really like about Heaney, the way he does it, he's one of these players that when he crumbs a ball like that, often the instinct is just to move in the direction of the goal and get drawn into the traffic. And he does the opposite. He pulls away, he comes around his arc, gets himself that space and nails a really nice balance shot rather than crashing through the pack. So, two players or three forwards, I guess, Franklin, Hayward and Heaney I've featured there. None of them did much after that, but that was about the highlight of the night, wasn't it? The first 20 minutes when we got up by a point.
Yeah, we were still in it there. Things were still possible in the world. But yeah, look, I don't know. I just was so despondent. It was so negative. But look, I had three moments. Two were off field, had nothing to do with the game.
Yeah, exactly. So, nothing to do with the footy.
My first one was my little bro meeting Stewie Maxfield at the pub before the game, getting a selfie with him, and then letting the group know that it just met Stewie Maxfield. And then me rocking up at the pub afterwards, after work, and then going up to Stewie Maxfield and also getting a selfie with him, just saying, look, on behalf of our family, you're a legend. We loved you, because we all grew up watching him. He was one of our favorite players. I had a chat to him, and he was just an absolute, he was a legend. He was a legend to my bro as well. Managed to plug the podcast. So, shameless plug there. But, just want to say, Stewie Maxfield, thanks for the good memories at the Swans, and also thanks for being a legend the other night. My game favourite moment was Joel Amartey's first goal in AFL. I just happened to be like right where he took the mark. So we'd stepped away from our seats to go down to the bar and grab a bite to eat just before halftime. And my missus went to the toilet, and I just sort of walked down the steps, and he'd taken a mark. He was about 50, 55 out. It was the non-alcohol section, so I probably was reeking of it. But he kicked his first goal, and I had it all on video. I think I sent it to you earlier on. It was awesome mark and a really great goal. He really bombed that. I think it was about 55 in the end. But that was my favorite game moment. Other than that, had a really cool chat with a group of Swans fans, with Tony and his crew. The reason I approached him is because he was basically wearing the same amount of red and white merchandise as I do, which is basically, head to toe, include underpants as well. So I'm talking like socks, undies. I got a Swatch watch that's red and white, like it's ridiculous. But this bloke had a fair amount of red and white on as well. So went up to him and said, "I like what you're doing, mate." Just had a bit of a chat with him, met his group. Just also plugged the podcast to those guys. But his little bro is coming, I think, in the top 100 or 200 in fantasy. So this is a group of diehard Swans fans, but also footy fans. So that was awesome for me. So having fun moments that didn't involve the game was a good way to sort of offset the turmoil and the tragedy of the game. But all right, let's move on to the ABOB medal, which is where we both choose our 5 best Swans on the ground using the 5-4-3-2-1 scoring system, with 5 points being the best. Stevo, kick us off, mate.
Yeah, and before we do this, can I ask, and I've been meaning to ask you this for the last couple of weeks, for our international fans especially, but because we do have quite a few people listening from abroad, and also those that aren't in Sydney, like Swans fans around the country in Australia, how much is a beer and a pie at the SCG these days? It's a while since I've been.
Oh, goodness, mate. So a Carlton, which is just your average, it's not a fancy craft beer or whatever. They've just put it up. It used to be $9.80. It's now $10.20 for it's not even a pint. It's like a schooner. So what's that? 425 ml. So it's not cheap, but so that's and then the pie, I think, is probably like, I want to say like $6 maybe.
Okay, so that's not too, because if I compare for finish price in euros, for those who don't want to get out their currency converter right now, in euros, that's about €6-ish for a beer, just over €6 for a beer. That's not too terrible for Northern Europe prices. For Central European prices, it's extortionary. But
well, look, we were having beers at the pub, and they were pints, and they were, probably better tasting, you could say, and they were about the $9-10 mark. So okay. I think the stadium keeps pace with how much beers are in Sydney, and I'm not approving of the price of beers in Sydney. Let me get that straight. I think they're more expensive than they need to be, but let's face it, they've got a captive market, haven't they? So we're going to buy the beers.
Yeah, that's it. Where else are you going to go? You're not going to. You want a beer at the footy, you got to go there.
Yeah. I mean, you could go to the non-alcohol section, but there's bound to be some drunk idiot there screaming at Amadi getting his first goal.
Asking
But,
some bloke that he's got matching socks with to come and take a selfie. Yep.
Tony and his crew, they were in the Four Pines bar. So we had an awesome beef. We had a beef brisket burger. It was delicious. It was the best food we've had in recent times. There's good food in the newsstand over the Bradman, but yeah, in the O'Reilly, there's not much choice. So yeah, look at us talking about everything other than the game.
We don't want to talk about the game. Does anyone want to hear about it?
All right, let's just quickly go through 5-4-3-2 because I think I think we both agreed it's like we didn't really want to give points to our players, but let's go. Give me your top five, Steve.
Yeah, as you said, someone had to get votes for the purpose of the project. And these are points allocated very much on effort rather than impact on the football game. So I gave 5 to Josh Kennedy, 4 to Callum Mills, 3 to James Rowbottom, 2 to Dane Rampy, 1 to Jake Lloyd.
Okay, mate. I gave 5 to Kennedy, 4 to Mills, 3 to Parker, 2 to Rowbottom, and 1 to Amadi. So, look, do we want to go through what we thought was good? Like I'm in a bit of a sour mood now.
Yeah, me too. How about let's just talk about Amadi because it's only his second game for the season, and I guess only his third game for his career. Let's just talk about him and why he deserved a vote because he came close to me. I almost gave him one as well, and I almost gave him votes last week too, actually. So,
well, that's a good point, Steve. I think just after last week, I think he backed it up. Like he and I think he was the Swanee I wanted to fly high, and he almost got it. I think I asked for 15 disposals, 5 marks, and 2 goals, and he got 12 disposals, 4 marks, 2 goals, or 2-1. Right? He laid 7 tackles. He chopped out Hickey. I thought he did pretty well. He wasn't dominant, but he certainly showed again that he's at the level. Like early on, I think Chris, one of the boys there, the guy I do the other podcast with, the Quick Bevy, he said that Amadi was looking gassed early on, and he was, but that was because it was a fair bit of fast movement in that first quarter, or certainly first half. But I thought he settled in well. And I really thought that goal that he got, that first one of his, was going to be the thing that got it, like just woke everyone up. But it wasn't to be. And nevertheless, I thought he had a good game, 2 inside 50s, 5 clearances. He scored 92 in fantasy. So I'll talk about that in a sec. But yeah, I thought he had a brilliant game for his third game.
Yeah, he was. And he made me sort of think a bit too that I guess Sam Reid is coming back hopefully soonish. And I really think we're missing Sam Reid actually. We're working between having Amadi, McLean and McDonald as those additional tools forward. And just think how much of a difference it would be if one of those three, it doesn't matter which one at the moment because, we don't know, but Sam Reid would be a massive difference if you had, like, say, a Reid and a Marty up there rather than a Marty and McDonald, who tries and he's doing well and he's learning footy, but he's not a Sam Reid level player yet. So I think that going forward, it's really good to see Amadi in that sort of form because he's showing that there's between him and McLean and McDonald, we've got these 3 tall forward options that can really come in and have an impact on a footy game, which I liked a lot. And he's kicked for goal, man. Like he's a very relaxed set shot, isn't he? Like he just went back and lobbed it from.
Yeah, that was a big kick.
50.
It wasn't like it was. I think by the time it hit his foot, I think it was about 53, 54. Like it was certainly beyond the arc. And look, I think you make a really good point. Like Sam Reid, I think, was a national draft. Like he was taken in the national draft, whereas these other 2 guys are a bit more speculative. I think preseason supplemental for McLean and then also rookie draft for Amadi. So they're always going to be a work in progress. And they've been in the system for a couple of years now, certainly showing very, very good signs. But yeah, they are of a different caliber of Sam Reid. And it's just that Reid's had his issues with, I guess, health. But I think if you had the 2 it's that balance that we haven't got at the moment. And that's, because of injury really, but it looks good for the future. Like if we'll talk about it later on, but McLean had a bit of a good day at the VFL. So if you can get these guys functioning well in the coming 3 to 5 years, then they're going to be a very dangerous forward line. If one of them doesn't get shifted to the back line as an extra tool. and if we keep them. But anyway, this we're sort of talking about other things that don't have to do with the ABOB medal. But I'm pretty happy to leave it there. I mean, look, the other thing is that the other players we've chosen are our stock standard, get the job done every week type of players, apart from Rowie, who's sort of in that phase of going from young, don't know what he could be anything, to actually stringing some really good performances together. So
yeah, and he did a
do you
good
have
job
anything
too. You're just on Rowbottom, I guess. I thought Rowbottom did a really good job after half time on Tom Mitchell. Tom Mitchell was dominant in the first half, and he was still effective in the second half, but nowhere near as dominant. So I thought, and a lot of his possessions that he had were kind of hat kicks and stuff that he did get his hands on. So I really liked the way that Rowbottom was able to knuckle down and do a job on him. That's why I had him so high up in the votes. You had him 2 as well. I had him 3. So yeah, I thought good game from him.
Yeah, Rowie, he's becoming one of my favourite players. Paddle bum, as some people call him, but I'm happy to roll with the Rowie. But yeah, mate, just real quickly, we had a few incidents in the match review office. So do you want to run us through those?
Yeah, I mean, the one that affects the Swans most was Wicks. Sam Wicks has been given 1 week suspension, which he'll serve after the bye. So he'll come back, I guess, for the West Coast game. Will be the first game that he's available fit. Yeah, he hit Will Day high. He sort of ran over the footy, got Day while Day was trying to pick up the ball while he's on his knees. And the match review office said that it was, I think I've got written here, careless conduct, medium impact, high contact, equating to a 1 week ban. Whatever that means, it means that he hit him in the head over the footy and got a week. I didn't have a problem with that. I thought that was fair out of that. I thought a week for that looked about right. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was fine with that one. And then James Worpel from the Hawks, he also got a week suspension for a dangerous tackle on Harry Cunningham. Again, I was fine with that one. He sort of, threw him down. It was pretty dangerous. And this is sort of tackles they're trying to take out of the game. So again, a week for that seemed about right. And then the other one that they looked at, which nothing happened for, was when O'Meara crunched Hayward and nothing. I mean, he didn't get cited, even there wasn't a fine or anything for that one. The quote from the AFL review was, "It was the view of the MRO that O'Meara was contesting the ball and had no realistic alternative way to contest the ball," whatever that means.
Okay, can I just say, I think that's malarkey, right? So I'm not talking about Malachy Carruthers here. So Wicks, all right, I'm not disputing Wicks. The hit on Day was a bit high. So if you're going to give him a week, that's fair enough. But how was O'Meara on Hayward, who got concussed and had to be substituted by James Bell? How I can't understand. Are they still feeling sorry that he himself got concussed by that Blues player? I think it was Plowman, wasn't it, a couple of weeks ago? Like, we'll give Jager. It's all good, mate. No worries. Like, to say that he had no realistic alternative. Here's a realistic alternative. Don't drop your hips and line your shoulder up and go in with your shoulder. I don't know, man. Anyway, it doesn't really change the course of anything. But look, I think we've been talking about Wicks as well, saying that maybe it's time for him to have a bit of a spell. And I thought he looked lively at parts. I think he kicked 1 goal too. But he's got a forced week off here, so it'll give him a chance to recover and recuperate himself. So it might be a little bit of a silver lining there. But yeah, let's not spend too much time on this, because again, this is one like where we can just spiral and things get out of control, and it's an establishment problem and a procedural problem. And I know we've both got opinions on it, but let's come back to it, if that's all right, Steve.
Yeah. The only thing I think everyone wants from the tribunal is consistency, and there's just none this year, and it's really difficult to know what's going on.
Consistently inconsistent.
Yeah, so, true. It's a form of consistency.
Yeah. So look, it's just you're left scratching your head. But obviously, safety is paramount. But there's got to be some sort of Anyway, all right. Let's. I'm going to move on to the AFL fantasy team. A bevy of bloods. Give you a quick update. So a bevy of bloods consists solely of current Swans plus a few ex-Swans to help us out with injury cover. In round 13, ABOB scored 1,398 points, which was 1 point more than last week. So it shows you we're pretty consistent with our fantasy output. And we're ranked 48,706, which leaves us sitting at 64,452nd overall, which is another about 2,000 place improvement on last week. And I'll tell you why that's happening in a moment. Top 5 of the game, 3 of the top 5 scores of the game were our Swannies in 2nd, 3rd, and 5th. The highest scoring Hawk was ex-Swan Tom Mitchell on 125, which was also the game high. The top 5 Swannies were Kennedy on 119, Mills on 113, Rampy on 109, Parker on 106, and Rowie on 101. So the good things were that the old heads keep getting it done. Obviously, couldn't get us the win, but still performed pretty well in a fantasy sense. So Kennedy, Rampy, Parker, getting all good scores, plus 100. Good to see Mills, Rowie, and also Amadi, who scored 92, as I mentioned earlier. Some youngsters coming through with some good fantasy form. Again, for the listeners who are tuning in, fantasy is a game that's run by the AFL. I think a lot of other sports have it. It's sort of like Super Coach and fantasy and all this stuff. You basically get points for every act that you do on the field. So a tackle is worth 4 points, a kick's worth 3, a mark's worth 3. So the higher the points you have, the more active you were in a game overall. One negative was that Jake Lloyd only scored 84 this round. I've just gotten used to him scoring 100 plus. So I think this was about the 5th score of his under 100 this year. So it shouldn't affect his average of about 100 too much, because he'll bounce back and roll on. But yeah, just had to call that out there. In terms of trades, we've got the week off, obviously, with the bye round coming up. So won't really look to do too much, because I have to wait and see who's looking likely to come in. But I do predict that we're going to drop a lot of places this round, because the reason we've been slowly climbing is that other teams have had a lot of their players who didn't play, because those players have been in teams that had buys. So with those players coming back, you'd expect other teams to score more. So I'm guessing that our current 64,000th rank may get hit. We may get bumped down to 70,000 again, but we'll keep on working hard, won't we, Swannies? So, all right, fun times, AFL Fantasy, check it out. Lastly, Stevo, VFL update. Can you give us a quick update on that, mate?
Yeah, I mean, because of the COVID stuff that's been happening in Victoria, a lot of the VFL hasn't been happening, but the teams outside of Victoria and there are there's the Swans and the Giants and the Suns and the Lions have all got VFL teams. Plus there's several other Queensland based teams, or at least 2.
Yep.
And so they
South
are all
Port.
still playing against each other. So the VFL is a bit of a mess at the moment, in terms of some teams have played 5 games, some have played 7. It's a bit chaotic on the ladder. But the Swans played Gold Coast this week that we just had on the Tramway Oval outside the SCG. And they lost in a heartbreak. They lost by 3 points to a goal after the siren. They led by as much as 38 points late in the second quarter. And then the Gold Coast just kept coming at them, and on the buzzer, they got a winning goal, which was tough for the young Swans reserves. But best players for us was Cal Sinclair was really strong. Clark, McLean kicked 4 goals, O'Riordan and Blakey. So some familiar names there. All of them have spent some time in the seniors. All played well. Blakey, some might be interested to know, was playing quite a bit off a halfback flank. And we're used to seeing him more on a wing and forward. So I'm not sure why they've got him playing there, or what the deal is. Maybe it's to get him some touch, or to try him out in different positions. We'll find out, I guess. But yeah, he was playing a bit across the back half of the ground. And in terms of form, we're not looking good on the ladder. We've won 2 and lost 5, so we're 14th on the ladder. But that might actually get worse, because there's a bunch of other teams around us who've played less games because of the COVID postponements, and who knows how or when they're going to catch those games up, or what the plan will be. We're still waiting to hear. And as for the next VFL game, again, we're not sure. They're doing it week by week, the VFL fixture at the moment, until things improve in Victoria. And yeah, that's it for the VFL for this week.
Fair enough. There's 22 teams in the VFL, so we're 14th out of 22. That's right. Look, the Suns had a bunch of AFL listed players, as you said, and they might even be a combination of higher draft picks than our AFL listed players. But yeah, Joel Jeffrey to kick that goal on the siren. Oh, geez, that was hard to watch.
Yeah.
But Blakey was looking okay off the halfback there, wasn't he? I mean, we know he's got a nice kick, so it'd be interesting to watch that one.
Yeah, and he was listed in the best players. So
yeah, I watched that. I watched that on KO and sped through, and yeah, it was interesting the setup they went with. But yeah, it was good to see McLean get on the end of a couple of goals as well, because then keep up that form for when if Amadi and or McDonald drop off, then we've got another young goal kicker coming back in. But we'll have to wait and see how we are sitting in terms of health for our next game. All right, a couple of topics in the AFL. We're going to have a quick chat about a few things in general. And I think it's going to focus about the Swans and our run home. So it's a little bit about the AFL, but it's mostly about the Swans. So, Stevo, the run home, did that Hawks loss mess up our finals chances?
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it? And as soon as we lost that game, or as soon as it was clear we are going to be losing that game, the first thing I started doing, even in the final quarter, I think, while we were clearly going to get done, was to start getting out the fixture and the ladder and thinking, okay, has this messed us up? What is this doing to the ladder? Because if we'd won that game, we would have been, percentage in the top four.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, which is like nine wins out of 13 games is a really, really strong effort. Like that's top four wins level. Everything is so tight below us that it hasn't actually done too much damage, and I'll explain a bit why. We're lucky that we're still in a situation at the Swans where, provided we do what we need to do, we'll be fine, because we're in sixth. We have the advantage of having got all those wins on the board. We've won 8 games, and typically, if you go back, I went back the past 10 seasons, so 10 seasons including this year, so to 2012, which was a far more enjoyable day against Hawthorn than we had this week, wasn't it? I didn't realize that. I'm getting some sort of trauma or something thinking back to better days.
Malcheski.
Oh, Nick Malcheski, what a superstar. Marty Matner with that run down the wing. We should just do a whole episode where we talk about how good we were in 2012, shouldn't we? And forget about what happened on the weekend against Hawthorn. And after, I was so cocky too in the preview with all my cousins from Hawthorn. Anyway, that's what you get. They're going to
get stuck into you. You're not going to get invited to Christmas, and B, if you do, they're going to get stuck into you, aren't they?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the bad side, I guess, of the Hawthorn family after all that bashing. But they know how to win games of footy, and that's what you need. Anyway, so back to 2012. So I went back and I looked at the last 10 years, and if you get 13 wins, you will make the finals. That's what the last 10 seasons is showing us, that 13 wins gets you in, no problem at all. You are not going to miss the finals with 13 wins. And in 5 of those 9 years, going back to 2012, not including this year, 12 wins and sometimes a bit of percentage has also been enough. So let's say that we want 12 wins is probably going to get you in, but let's say we want 13 to be safe. We need 5. We've got 9 left.
Okay.
So we've got to win 5 out of 9 games. We can already cross off all the teams on the ladder from 12th down. So Adelaide, St Kilda, the 12th and 13th. For them to get to the magical 13 wins, they need to win 8 and lose 1 for the rest of the season. I think we can both agree that Adelaide and St Kilda are not going to go 8-1 for the rest of the year.
Probably not. St Kilda's way too, they lost to the Crows, right? I think Cairns on the bell with that amazing kick by Phil Thorpe, but.
Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah. So I agree. Probably not. But you never know. But probably not.
So highly unlikely that Adelaide and St Kilda are going to go 8-1 for the rest of the year. So that really only leaves the teams that are 6 to 11, which is us. So what we've got is we've got the Swans, West Coast, Richmond, and then we've got Fremantle, Essendon, and the Giants. So we've got 6 teams that are realistically trying to get 3 spots on the ladder, realistically. But the advantage is that those teams that are outside the 8 now all have to get at least 7 out of their last 9 to get to that 13 wins. So that's quite an effort as well because of that gap, because we've got this 2-game gap. So already West Coast to get to 13 wins, they're the same as us. They need to win 5. Richmond need to win 6. The Giants, Essendon and Fremantle all need to win 7 to get to that 13 magic number. We've got 9 games left. In the 9 games that we've got left, we play teams in the top 8 3 times. We play teams that are ranked 9th to 11th, so those contender teams that can get to the 8 3 times, and we play 3 games against teams who are 12th to 18th that don't have a chance of making finals. So if we beat those 3 weaker teams, we only need to get 2 wins out of the other 6 games we have against teams from 11th and up. So that's where we are on the ladder. The final thing I'll say on this, because it's a lot of information, unless you're taking notes with a pen and paper. That,
Pop quiz.
Yeah, that's it. How many wins have Richmond had? Is the fixture, because that's the important thing. So I just said that we have to play 3 top 8 teams still out of our 9. Richmond only play 2, so they're looking pretty good. West Coast play 4, Essendon play 4, Freo play 4. The Giants have to play 5 of their remaining 9 against teams that are currently in the 8. So, so those teams that are outside the 8 right now actually have more games against teams inside the 8 left than the teams that are currently in the 8. So, if we don't blow it, we should still be fine. That's where I'm up to. That's the end of my speech on this.
That's the key message. But I mean, look, I'm looking at 3 games against 12th to 18th. These are our danger games. The games that we should be winning, we're bloody losing.
Yeah, they're the ones we're dropping, aren't they?
Yeah, we're dropping them. But and that said, you don't want to have to just come up against only top 8 teams because that's going to take a toll as well. But okay, looking at it like that, the way you've laid it out, it's not impossible. It's still, I mean, obviously it would have been. I mean, we both tipped the Swans over the Hawks, and I think everyone did. But it would have been great to get that win. But we're still very much in it. Is your point here?
Yeah, and we are in control is the thing that I want to take away from this, I guess. If we beat the teams that are below us on the ladder for the rest of the year, then we will make the finals, no problem. We might even sneak into the home final, 5th or 6th. You never know. If we beat the teams below us.
I mean, that hasn't always gone our way this year, but we'll have to wait and see. All right. Okay, that's awesome. Thank you for doing that breakdown there for us, Steve.
Look, I needed to take something. After watching that Hawthorn game, it was also doom and gloom. I thought, no, okay, I need to convince myself that this did not hurt our finals chance.
Very optimistic, very forward-facing.
I thought I'll go through the fixture and just give the most favourable interpretation of it that I can.
Well done, mate. Well done. You're not so much on the free kicks, but you like analysing the ladder and saying it's all up to us.
Yeah,
our fate is in our hands.
Yeah, I like stuff we can control. Just like I said with the free kicks, we can't control an umpire who hates us or who just is bad at their job. But we can control how we attack the footy, and we can control not losing any more games to bloody North Melbourne or whoever else we've got to play.
Oh, God. I hate to think. All right. Okay, I'll just give a quick Buddy update on his chasing the 1,000-goal milestone. He only gave us 1 goal against his former team, Hawthorn, last Friday. So it takes his tally to 969. So he is 1 goal away from equaling Jack Titus to become the 6th greatest goal kicker of all time. He's 2 away from leapfrogging him. And of course, Jack Titus played for Richmond in 1926 to 1943. So we're all looking forward to that, buddy. He's so selfless these days. Sometimes I just want him to kick a few more goals for himself. But anyway, he's the team player, so it's great to watch. All right. We okay to move on here, Steve? Are you going to any other points?
Definitely. I promise I won't bombard anyone with any more ladder predictions for at least the next few weeks when we need it again to cheer us up.
No worries. I love it, Steve. Cheers, mate. Okay. We're going to talk about the round ahead in this segment. And in this segment, we focus on one game. And it's the most important game as it's the Swans' next game. Obviously, we've got a bye, so we're going to skip that. But I will also add, up until this episode, Steve-O and I had been previewing 2 other non-Swans games of interest because we clearly have an unhealthy obsession with footy. But for the sake of time, both for the listeners and our own, and so we can also devote all of our attention into our beloved Bloods, we are going to drop that section going forward. That said, we'll still run through our tips for the rest of the round as always. So you can look forward to getting some terrible, awful predictions from us because, I can't pick a dirty nose at the moment, mate. That's where I'm at. But anyway, with that in mind, let's skip ahead to the games of the round and have a quick look at that and give our tips. So game 1 is 3rd place Cats versus 2nd place Bulldogs at GMHBA in Geelong with no crowd at the request of Geelong. On Friday night, I'm picking the Cats. How about you, mate?
Yeah, I'll pick the Cats too. I'm curious about this one because I heard that there was no crowd, and I was watching one of the footy panel shows during the week. I forget which one it was. And they asked about the no crowd as well because Geelong is outside of the Melbourne restriction zone, right, for COVID, isn't it? So they could have a crowd but have agreed not to. How did that work? Do you know how it worked? Or
I don't. I gathered that maybe the Bulldogs, who are based within that restriction zone, were leaving that and coming out, so they didn't want to potentially kick the ball into the crowd and people get coronavirus, like the South Australian Health Minister was worried about the other week in Adelaide. But that's my only. I think if they were playing a team outside of Melbourne, then I don't know if they would have been able to say no crowd thanks. But it was either there with no crowd or elsewhere, as in Tasmania or Sydney with the crowd, I think. So they went for the local with no crowd, I believe.
Okay, so for the moment, the way it stands is that games can be played again in Victoria, but with no crowd. Am I understanding right?
That's my that's how I see it. But it's been a couple of days since I've read up on the actual position, but that it's scheduled this way and in the fixture like this, then that's my assumption.
Yeah, gotcha. Cool. Yeah, because I was a bit confused with that one, so I thought maybe there'd been more. I haven't seen much of the Australian news this week, so I wasn't sure if something had changed.
Yeah, no, I think that's the case. But yeah, I'm going the Cats, mate, because they look amazing against Power.
Yeah, I like them. Hey, and honestly, I think that the Bulldogs are good, but the Cats are a bit more good right now.
The Cats are a bit more good.
a bit more better, yeah.
Well, the other thing, the Bulldogs had a week off, so it's always interesting to see how teams come back after the week off. But I'm getting that right. I think they had a week off last week.
Yeah, I don't remember them playing.
Double check that. Yeah, I don't remember them. I don't remember me getting an incorrect tip for their game. So,
but it's not too bad because there weren't many games last week. So getting 3 is not as bad as getting 3 when there's 9 games.
Mate, I got 2 and one of them was a draw. I got 2 and one was a draw. So.
Does the draw count? Does it? You get a point for a draw. All right.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. Game 2, we've got 15th place Suns versus 5th place Power at Metricon Stadium up on the Gold Coast on Saturday afternoon. I'm going to go with the Power.
Yep, me too. Gold Coast decided to play their one good game of the season against us, which was very nice.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, Gold Coast, you bastards. All right, game 3, we've got the 18th place Kangaroos versus 4th place Lions at Blundstone Arena in Hobart on Saturday twilight time slot. I'm going the Lions, although you never know with the Roos these days. They're showing some form.
And it's in Hobart, okay.
So that's their home away from home, right?
Yeah, okay, yeah, and then Hawks play in the north, don't they? In Launceston. Yeah. I'm going to tip the Lions, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Kangaroos have a real crack at them because they were pretty good this last week against the Giants, weren't they?
They were. They probably should have beat the Giants. So
yeah, they should have. Yeah, for sure. I was watching that game and I was cheering for the Roos to get up for our ladder reasons.
No other reasons.
Absolutely none. I'll tip Brisbane as well. I'm saying with Brisbane.
Fair play. Yeah. Game 4, we've got 10th place Giants versus 14th place Blues at Giants Stadium in Sydney at Homebush there on Saturday night. I'm gonna pick the Giants to bounce back and beat the Blues convincingly.
Yeah, and I guess the Giants, they need to win this. If they drop this one, they can pretty much forget about the finals, can't they? Because also I should say that those predictions that I was talking about in the last segment were assuming that the Giants and the Bombers both win this week. So if they don't, it gets even harder. So I think, they're going to have to, right? They are Giants.
Yeah. Game 5, 17th place Hawks versus 11th place Bombers at UTAS in Launceston there on Sunday twilight. I'm going to pick the Hawks because I thought they played pretty well against us. And it's down in their Tassie home away from home for them. So how about you, mate?
All right, so there's 2 games this round. 2 out of 5 games are in Tasmania this week.
Yeah.
And they won't give them a footy team, but they'll play all their spare matches down there. That's interesting.
And Northern Territory will apply for an application and then have all their games removed. So I don't know, mate. Yeah, I'd love to see a team in Tassie. That's a whole other episode. Let's tell the listeners that we fully intend to give. Or do an episode where we talk about how we would have an AFL competition in Australia, what that would look like for us. But that is seriously, you and I talk about that probably every quarter, and we have a heated debate about which. Yeah,
we never agree ever.
Yes. We never. Yeah, but let's do it because I think it's an interesting topic.
Yeah, it is for sure.
We'll come back. Yeah, we'll come back and we'll have a whole segment in an episode by the end of the year where we talk about that. But teams that have the bye this week, a fair few of them.
Oh, I didn't give
Crows,
my tip.
Tigers.
Sorry, I need to give you my tip. I didn't say it.
Oh, yeah, the last one.
I just
Yeah,
realised he didn't tell you. I think so. Who did you tip? You tipped Hawthorn.
Hawks, yeah.
And we've tipped the same for all the other ones. I'll tip the Bombers then. Bombers.
Yeah, I think they're always heated affairs between the Hawks and the Bombers. So it should be a good game. But yeah, I just think that if the Hawks can play like they did against us, although we were terrible, so I don't know.
Absolutely disgraceful. But they were great, so good on them.
Yeah. All right, teams with a bye: Crows, Tigers, Saints, Eagles, Swans, Magpies, Dockers, and Demons. So short round, 5. Yeah, basically everyone. There's only 5 games, so nice, short and sharp. But one every Friday, 2 on Saturday, 3 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday. So yeah, all right. Well, have you got anything else to add, mate?
No, I think that's it from me this week. It's going to be a short round, but it'll be good because it'll be easier to catch up on most of the games with only 5. So.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. All right. Well, with that in mind, that brings us to the end of this episode. On behalf of the Bevy, I would like to say thank you very much for listening. We look forward to you joining us next time. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at A Bevy of Bloods for updates and announcements. Please also feel free to check out A Quick Bevy with Swans fans on YouTube and Spotify or wherever you check out your videos and podcasts. A Quick Bevy is a 10-minute weekly bonus series by me and another mate, Chris, in which we take in turns racing the clock to answer some Swans and footy-related questions. Until then, up the Bloods, and can you, Swannies?